Hi everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm Aaliyah Brumfield and this is my oral presentation. So going into this paper, I already kind of knew I wanted to highlight the key factors that play a big role in the story of a film. And as I went into actually forming my thesis, the one film theory that I found that reflected my ideas at the time was semiotic theory, which is the study of how codes and conventions are created in film. So for this paper, I'm basically going to be analyzing signs and codes reflected in Sam Mendes's American Beauty and how those codes bring meaning to the overall story. So American Beauty is about a guy named Lester Braham, played by Kevin Spacey, who is basically just fed up with his life, and so wanting a little bit more interest in his existence, he kind of finds himself becoming a little bit more infatuated with his daughter's best friend and making a number of questionable decisions as a father, husband, and employee. And overall, I would say that this movie brings up a lot of questions, but one of the more obvious ones would be about life and identity. So, one of my main points I would include in my overall paper is how semiotic theory is represented in the components of the movie. So, I would be breaking down the elements and kind of going into detail about things such as color, cinematography, and editing. And even though I'm going to touch on all of those, my main focus would probably be on color since it plays a huge role in the overall film and is something that really goes unnoticed. So another one of my main points that I was going to include in my essay is psychology and how psychology can work hand in hand with semiotic theory. Um, I was also thinking about using some of Christian Metz's concepts and comparing them to the film. In one of his books called Imaginary Signifier, he kind of addresses the psychology experience and model that comes along with the operation and creation of film. He also further explains how signifier cinema combines presence and an absence, and also describes the traits used in the functioning of the imaginary, which will ultimately all fit my argument because, like I said before, I'm going to be going into detail about the cinematic presence that is reflected in American Beauty and the technique used to obtain that certain presence. So, like I previously said before, color is something that plays a big role in American Beauty. And if you watch the movie, you'll quickly notice that the colors red, white, and blue is expressed everywhere throughout the film. It's kind of similar to the American flag, and just from that correlation, an idea of the colors of the American flag being represented in this movie and how the movie is called American Beauty, one could obviously assume that there's a lot more to the colors than just colors. However, even though all the colors have their own role and purpose in the film, one of the more noticed colors would probably be the color red. It is used a lot in this movie, and it really can't go unnoticed because, for the most part, it's so in your face. Um, at the beginning of the movie, when following Lester's lifestyle, you'll notice that the color red isn't really too present, but still is there. And you can see this lesser use of the color red in the beginning for the most part when he's with his family or just at work mostly. Mostly in settings where Lester is suppressed or, really isn't happy. However, as you progress more into the story, when Lester's life becomes a little bit more interesting, you'll notice the color red becoming more prominent and being seen in bigger places and scenes. And from this idea, one could assume that the color red represents a sense of freedom or individuality, because Lester is able to be more in control of his own identity, the more the color red shows up. And then we could also take it a little bit more farther and kind of relate it back to the American flag and maybe even the American dream and its ideals based on freedom itself.